Hello, 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 my little devil darlings. This is Penny the Angelic Sweetheart here, and welcome back to Paranormal Penny Podcast. It's been like a hot minute, and I apologize, but today we kind of have some exciting gossip about Mr. What? No, Little Nightmare, excuse me. And yes, I did make a video about that already, but that was just the news of the third game. But before we get into that, welcome my first ever and special guest doing his first podcast ever, Kitsu.
Hello everyone, they call me Kitsu the Creator, but my friends just call me Kitsu. You can too, whichever works.
Is that your character voice?
Sorta is, it's basically also my default voice, you know. I'm just excited, it's my first ever podcast, in all honesty. I'm just in a very good mood, you know.
Well, that's good. I want you to be in a good mood. I don't want you to be sad.
I know, and I don't feel sad, really. I'm excited, you know? I'm happy.
Anyway, so, we have found out some very interesting info based on the theories of Little Nightmares, and these are freaking brand new. So, Kitsu, would you like to share a little bit?
Well, from basically what we've gathered, mainly with the recent audiobook, well, more like audio podcast, known as The Sound of Nightmares, which are borderline confirmed to take place within the Little Nightmares universe, multiverse, whichever, practically the same thing at this point, whatever, is that we have at least a basic understanding how the Little Nightmares world works. And it is rather intriguing, to say the least. I honestly love the direction it's going.
Yeah, but even after Super Horror Bro kind of explained it a little bit, it's still hard to understand somewhat. I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah, in all honesty, it's a lot to take in, though from what I could piece together, it's still really cool. I mean, it puts the name of the game series into, well, a practically literal sense.
Yeah, and also sheds some brand new light, because so far in the few years that Little Nightmares has been out, nothing hardly made any sense. Yeah, because, you know, it's never explained, and the characters don't speak, they just make noises. But the only speaking character, well, barely speaks actually, speaking character that they put in the Little Nightmares universe is Mono.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, he speaks a little bit, and so did Six in that game. But anyway, yeah, this brand new information is kind of mind-blowing, and I haven't even finished the audio series yet.
I'm still working my ways there, though honestly, it's actually pretty well done. I like it. So if you ever wish to check it out, feel free. It's on YouTube. I googled it.
Yeah, I'll leave a link of the first chapter in the description for you guys, and then you can just go to Bandai Namco's YouTube channel and listen to the rest, and even listen to the ones that are in a different language, because they do have I believe a Spanish version.
I think so. I've yet to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, because I saw the title of it being in a different language, so I'm thinking it's Spanish.
Yeah, that's my best guess.
Yeah, anyway. So, you want to try to explain how the Little Nightmares world works in your point of view?
Alright, from basically what I could piece together using basically the descriptions we've got from the Sound of Nightmares, as well as, you know, Super Horror Bros, description of it, to describe it in my best words, there essentially exists two parallel worlds, one being the counties, which seems to act pretty similar to our world, from what I could really get from it. And then there's this alternate dimension that is simply dubbed the Nowhere. It's very, well, literally dreamlike, though anyone who enters it still feels pain, their senses still work as they do. It's dreamlike, but in a weird way, you can still feel pain like you would in the normal world.
Yeah, so...
Oh, sorry.
No,
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I'm the one who interrupted. You didn't.
It's okay. And how some people have learned to access it is via having dreams, but rather than just dreaming in their mind, go into this place, they physically warp from their world into the nowhere. And they wake up in the nowhere, basically.
So,
and
can I
it's
say
heavily
something real
implied
quick?
that oh, sure, you can.
So, how it basically works is that they're dreaming, but at the same time, they're not. So it's like the in-between.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and finish what you're saying.
And basically the nowhere is also tied to this series of other worlds that has been dubbed the Spiral, with the nowhere being one of the many worlds linked to it. Hence why I kind of described it as sort of a multiverse, if each one is technically a universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make
sense.
Of
universes.
Some ways.
And crazy thing is, the Spiral is basically where the main game of Little Nightmares 1 and 2, most likely 3, and presumably very Little Nightmares takes place in.
As well as the DLC of Little Nightmares.
As well as the DLC, yes.
Like Secrets of the Maw.
Yeah.
Okay, so that so-called nightmare that those kids wake up from, is that like, is it like... The Spiral basically is the middle, like the in-between, the nowhere and the whatever the fuck the world that's like our world is called.
It seems like the counties is basically the quote-unquote real world. I'm questioning how the counties still work. I don't know whether it's like some sort of dystopian society or some cross-world government or whatever, though we'll put that aside for later, I guess. But main thing is, it seems like even though the Spiral is essentially a sort of dream world, it is as real as our world. Just somehow people can transfer through it via dreams. But only for those that are, like, specifically attuned to it. Like, only those whose minds are strong enough can properly pass through.
Yeah, and...
anyone can hop through, yes. Continue.
Yeah, even adults, although it's not as easy for adults to enter. That's what has been said anyway.
It's basically said that ones that can mostly travel from the counties and the nightmare world, basically, are children who are especially attuned with it.
What do you mean by attuned?
Well, it doesn't go into detail, but as described, it seems that mainly children that have experienced trauma, or at least intense trauma, in the real world, can be attuned and access the nowhere. Almost like some sort of escape.
Ah, so... in a way, it's basically kind of like an Alice in Wonderland thing, but it's twisted and dangerous and evil.
Yeah, basically, it's almost like Alice in Wonderland if the Wonderland was an absolute, literal nightmare.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Alice in Wonderland wasn't really twisted until they came out with, like Alice Madness Returns, blah blah blah, or just Alice, and da-da-da-da-da. And of course, the Nowhere is not Wonderland. There's no Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, the Nowhere is anything but wondrous.
Yeah, like, based on what this child is describing in her mind, is basically something that could break a grown man. But she's been through it, and is somehow hadn't broken in spirit yet. Though, I kind of forgot how she died, so don't spoil it for me there. Cause
I won't, I'm still working on the details there.
Yeah, all I know is that she doesn't survive, so that's a spoiler, I'm sorry. And I kind of spoiled myself anyway by watching, Super Horror Bros, theory on it and the new understanding he got. So I kind of spoiled myself, so yeah. You're welcome!
In all honesty, I kind of did too, though mainly I am planning on, listening to the full thing to get, the nitty-gritty details and stuff. Basically anything that Super Horror Bro didn't really cover, since it seems like he mainly covered, the broad strokes, or, the major details, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and although this doesn't have anything to do with the new info, back a while ago, I came up with a theory of my own. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, of course.
It's not going to matter now, but yeah, I'll tell it. Well, I was thinking that maybe, just maybe, that this Nowhereverse, or in this case, Little Nightmares universe, could probably, I think it was taking place more of like maybe in hell, but there's no fires or whatever. Like hell can take many forms, like everybody's own personal hell and blah 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 blah. And all these adults are the demons in there, and they're also sinners.
Interesting enough, the way it seems to have been described in the theory, it's not too far off. I mean, with the way it's described, mainly with how some adults can pass through, though their bodies react completely differently to the nightmare realm than children do. Like, children, for the most part, are anything but completely defenseless, while the adults seem to, well, you know, we've seen them.
Yeah, and I came up with a theory on the patients, you know, on what kind of souls they are, and what like, souls, okay, come on, thought, come back. I know I made a series based on that hell theory. Not series. Theory. Excuse me. I think I said theory already, but anyway. I made like well, I didn't discuss it publicly, I only discussed it with Lego. But it's like a theory that these mannequins are made from certain souls of certain people that went to hell because of that certain sin. And that theory is that the mannequins could have been created by liars and manipulators.
Yeah, I'm still trying to fully piece together what's up with those mannequins. They always freak me out for obvious reasons, both the pottery children in the schoolhouse and the mannequins in the hospital. Mostly the mannequins in the hospital, because, you know, some of them have like full-on lamps for heads.
Yeah,
what looks like lamps.
Yeah, and you want to know why I think they'd be based off or created by souls of liars and manipulators?
Go on.
Well, you know how that they're completely still, and you think that they're just, well, not normal, but creepy-looking mannequins with the wrong parts on it. You don't think much of it, right?
Yeah.
But that's actually a trick. What they are living beings that want to prey on you, and they deceive their prey by, you know, staying still in the light and moving in the dark, so they have a chance to maybe, I don't know, ambush them if they aren't paying attention. So that's why I think that they'd be based off the souls of liars and manipulators, because they basically lie/manipulate their prey by tricking them into thinking they're just harmless, very strange mannequins with not the right parts on them.
Yeah, which is very interesting in all honesty. Like, the way they obviously trick their prey by, like, standing perfectly still when either in light or, in many cases, when they're being observed. As in the darkness, you can't really see them, so they can move freely, but once they're in the light, and you can see them, they're as still as a statue.
Yeah, exactly. And as for the guests in the first game, I mean, obviously their sin is gluttony, but it's not just gluttony, I think it's also greed. Like, both greed and gluttony.
Yeah, I have noticed that despite the guests being very gluttonous, they're also very oddly well dressed. Like, when they first enter, they have, like, these almost porcelain masks on their face, but once they sit down at the dining table, the masks come off and, well, it's time to chow down.
Yeah, and the gluttony part I understand, but the greed one is a little bit harder to explain. I just think that it probably suits them in a way, because, you know, I don't think that they're the type to share their food or whatever. It probably doesn't prove anything, but that's my theory on that whole hell thing. And the geisha that ran that whole ordeal, she's both pride and... pride and what? I already had it. Sloth is not right. She's not lazy. Okay, so...
I think it's envy. Like, envious of the way other people look. Yeah, like, with her whole desire of having a perfect appearance, when in reality she's anything but.
Well, in real life she looks good, but in the mirror she looks hideous because, hello, she's done very stuff that's, like, completely vain. And yeah, she's... pride and envy are her sins, and she's paying for it by not being able to see a beautiful version of herself. So she wears a mask.
Yeah.
But as for the...
Even the way...
Sorry.
Oh. Continue. Sorry.
No, I think I interrupted you.
Oh, it's okay. Judging by the way she acts, she clearly seems to, like, whoever she used to be before ending up in the Maw, she clearly had some sort of authoritarian over everyone, as even in the Maw, she seemed to have some level of control over it, especially when, as we've seen the guests begin to march into the restaurant, she's standing on a balcony observing them. Almost like a general watching an army march.
Yeah, I see that. And the chefs, obviously gluttony, and both gluttony and pride, because they take pride in their cooking.
Yeah.
As well as cannibalism.
Yeah. The only good trait I truly see about them is that they rarely, at least from what it appears to be, they don't really have feuds with each other. Like, I remember in one shot we see them literally washing dishes together.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of people to feed. Of course they have to wash dishes. And I thought that they were in a feud, but they're silent about it because, hey, it's the whole no speaky, but action showing ordeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as for the viewers, you remember the viewers?
Yeah, the most human-looking of the, monsters, well, aside from their face and their bobbleheads, basically.
Well, I think that their sin is sloth.
They do seem to really love standing around, basically observing the TV, and they only get aggressive when the TV's off, or when a TV's on in another room.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's both sloth and wrath, or it could be a different sin, but I can't think of any other sin besides those. Because, you know, they're lazy because they keep watching TV, not doing shit, but then again, they get super angry, hence wrath, when the TV is fucked with in any way.
Yeah, whether it be turned off, smashed, or any other way, they get extremely violent.
And okay, let's see, there's sloth and wrath. And the bullies, which are basically these walking porcelain dolls that look like children. I think maybe their sin is wrath, because they act rowdy, and, you know, people tend to act rowdy when they're mad. Okay, so I think maybe their sin is wrath and greed from, you know, selfish, spoiled children.
Yeah, crazy thing. The only time that we've ever seen them calm is around the teacher, which, even then at first, they were a bit rowdy, though once the teacher silenced them, they were practically as still as the very material they're made out of, porcelain.
Well, they're afraid of her. And the teacher's sin, what do you think the teacher's sin would be?
I feel like it would also be wrath, because as we've seen, she's very easy to anger.
Yeah, wrath. So that's basically, and the kids are both wrath and greed, because, you know, they're rowdy, spoiled, and they can get pretty violent. They'll even bully each other.
Yeah,
and I think they take stuff all the
crazy.
Time. Excuse me.
It's okay. It's honestly rather crazy how, even with the new info we've gotten, a lot of your old theory seems to somewhat work still. Like, even with the new info we provide, it almost, like, clarifies it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, except hell is not what we envision in our mind. It's not all fire. Like, it can look just like Earth, but a lot more twisted.
Yeah, which I had a theory on exactly why all the worlds of the spiral look the way they do. And my small theory is that essentially all the worlds of the spiral don't really have a true form, but are only manipulated to look the way they do by whoever inhabits it. Hence why it looks so Earth-like, albeit heavily warped and distorted.
Exactly. And
which goes on to your idea of hell not having a proper form exactly, and not exactly as fire and brimstone as we would initially imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of different ways to torture sinners besides burning them for eternity. And anyway, let's not forget the Hunter. He's the first enemy we encounter before we get to the Pale City in number 2.
Yeah. Trying to think about what the Hunter would be.
Well, I mean, I think maybe greed or something, in a way. But at the same time, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if it was greed.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe pride, since he does seem prideful in his hunting skills. Setting up numerous traps, even keeping a spare shotgun in his shed.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Pride. Yeah, I think he takes pride in his taxidermy skills as well.
Yeah. As seen by that taxidermy-esque family in his house.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
But yeah. And the children that are basically in hell did something very wrong in their life, and they're basically at the age where they know better and that they can go to hell if they keep fucking around.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's honestly rather crazy how, with all the new info that we've gotten, it almost sheds a new light not only on the main games, but the very monsters we ran from. Like, looking back onto them, I've noticed that despite them obviously being monstrous, you know, pretty much attacking nearly any child they see, they seem to have some level of humanity behind them. Like, even despite their warped appearance and pure, almost animal-like aggression, there's some level of humanity behind them, such as, well, the Hunter having odd taxidermy, but it's in the form of a family at a dinner table. Almost like some memories of what he was before becoming this monstrous hunter kind of lingered, and he tried to recreate that.
Yeah, and very little nightmares. We can't forget those monsters.
Oh, yes. Trying to think.
Well, for the butler, the butler, I know he's loyal to his mistress, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not sloth. He does evidently do shit around the house, so he's not lazy.
Yeah. Trying to think.
We'll come back to him. But what about this other dude that I don't remember, but he's basically an old man in a chair doing shit. I don't know. I don't remember what he was doing, but he was in the lower levels of the nest.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly. I admit, it's been a while since I've, really gotten into too much Little Nightmares content, hence why my memories are a bit foggy.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now.
Oh, okay.
That'll be a lot easier to do it that way. Oh, he's called the Craftsman. He's an old man, apparently with twisted up feet that, instead of facing straight, they face backwards, which is probably why he can't walk.
Yeah. I don't know why, hearing the name Craftsman, the first thought that came to mind was that his sin would be pride. Like, taking pride in his work. Yeah. Despite him having the worst legs to ever grace the face of the earth.
Well, I think I just came up with a theory in my head as to why they'd be like that. Because he was so prideful in life that in death, now that his feet are the wrong way, he can't step over everyone or walk all over them, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's one of his punishments, and I think there's another sin. Maybe, well, do you think he has anger issues?
That's hard to say. I mean, show that a lot of the monsters are obviously aggressive. At least, and so far it seems like most of them that we've covered have wrath to some degree.
Yeah, of course there's going to be wrath. And, okay, I think maybe it would be pride and greed, in a way.
Yeah.
Because his selfishness cost him his legs. Well, no, his pride. And his selfishness cost him his whatever, and he's working underneath someone else who's rich, which is the pretender herself. Her sin, obviously, well, sins, I should say, hers is obviously both pride and greed. Because it makes a lot more sense that she'd be both pride and greed as well. Do you remember who the pretender is?
I can vaguely remember the pretender, in all honesty. The pretender... Oh, sorry.
She's the girl with white hair, and she basically lives in the mansion known as The Nest, and she's the mistress of the household, and all the freaking dolls are basically taxidermy human beings, so it's basically to keep her from being lonely, blah blah blah, and she got angry when one of them got broken, but of course we didn't understand what she was saying. So, if you remember correctly who I'm talking about, both greed and pride, like she takes pride in her dolls, and obviously doesn't share them with anyone. So greed and pride, and I'm thinking it's greed, pride, and wrath.
Yeah, she definitely seems to show a huge level of not only, like, saying how high her authority is over basically everyone in the nest, though it's clear that she gets rather aggressive over anyone who tries to test her level of authority, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for some reason she developed some kind of power to just drain life force to where somebody is literally nothing. Nothing but clothes.
Yeah, definitely a big yikes factor there.
Yeah. And, the butler, he's a hard one. Okay, let me look at the butler here. He obviously is also an old man, but he's always in this kind of bowing stage, and both of his hands are basically locked in golden cuffs. And he can move things around with his mind, and he floats.
Yeah.
He also doesn't, it also is based on the personality description, he hates those that sneak up on him.
Clearly, for whatever reason, he seems rather loyal, obviously, to,
Pretender.
The pretender.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain shut off for a second there. But, it's hard to think. I can't really think of him ever really being as simple compared to the other monsters. I mean, the only thing I can really think of is his extreme annoyance to anyone who tries to sneak up on him.
Well, he obviously gets angry because of that.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have to cross him off on the too hard to see what sins that he would get. Because we obviously cannot think of anything. And Mono, even though he wasn't a monster at first, but he is now thanks to you-know-who.
Yeah.
I think it's pride. I think it's some level of pride, but he doesn't, let it get to him, like get to his head.
Yeah, compared to the others, because obviously with Mono / the Thin Man, he's rather different from the other monsters, and not just because of his abilities.
Yeah, he could be a great superhero.
Yeah, as unlike the others, who are obviously monstrous and heavily deformed, he seems the most, dare I say, normal of them? The only abnormal parts about him are his powers and his extreme height.
Yeah, he's mostly well intact.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that his sins are both pride and wrath. Because, he's very pissed off at what Six did to him. And he became pretty bitter and vengeful later in life.
Yeah, which, of course, looking back on that would make sense why of course, the Thin Man would capture Six specifically, and not truly go aggressive against Mono / himself until Mono attempts to go rescue Six.
Well,
because at this point, the Thin Man or Old Mono, whichever works, is so wrathful and vengeful and wants to get revenge on the very friend or former friend that betrayed him, that he was even willing to stop his past self from stopping Six's practically eternal torment, at where basically it seems like the Thin Man wants to make her experience what he felt and left her abandoned within the signal tower, with her becoming a monster like how he probably sees himself.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of obvious what Six's sins are.
Yeah. Extreme hunger, well, gluttony, especially shown with the first game.
Yes. And?
Let's see. She definitely seems to be very prideful, especially with, her lack of care for others.
Yeah.
Especially later on down the line with Little Nightmares 2.
Yeah, and greed, because she is pretty selfish.
Yeah.
And as well as wrath, because she's pretty violent.
Yeah, as we've seen with numerous monsters throughout both Little Nightmares 1 and 2.
And she was breaking a mannequin's fingers.
Yeah. Ranging from chopping the arms off of the janitor in the first game to aiding Mono and shooting the hunter in the second. And also burning the doctor in the hospital, though looking back on it, he kind of had it coming.
Oh, the doctor. Yeah. What do you think his sins would be?
Well, interesting enough, according to Super Horror Bros' theory about, essentially, with the origins of that doctor, who we believe used to be Otto from the podcasts, who ran a psychiatric hospital, who was examining Noon, the main protagonist of the audio series.
Yes.
It seems like he definitely seemed prideful, constantly obsessed with finding ways into the nowhere. And eventually it seemed like he achieved that, though became a monster as a result.
Yeah, I think he's both prideful and greedy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't care about the well-beings of the children.
Most definitely, which I feel like with the way that he essentially created those mannequins, if those mannequins were the Doctor's creations, which they seem to
obvious.
It's obviously that they are, it almost seems to reflect how he was in the counties, which might have been the case for all of the monsters throughout all of the games, that their appearance and deformities reflect how they were in life. Were you a vicious monster in life? Well, you continue to be one in the nowhere, it seems.
Or in this case, in the hell theory that I had. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's basically that theory, but I can't think of any other monster right now. Oh, wait. The granny from the DLC Secrets of the Maw.
Oh yeah, the granny.
Almost forgot about her.
Honestly, that one always freaked me out.
Okay. Maybe maybe it's greed or something? Like some form of greed? But other than that, I don't know what other sins that she would be paying for if that was hell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna do for that. Anyway, that was my hell theory on the monsters and blah 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 blah, but based on the new info, it's not it. Not that I ever thought it was it, but yeah.
Yeah. Though, looking back on it, applying with the new theory, it seemed like some level of it is true, even though it's not outright stated that the nowhere / the spiral is a exact form of purgatory, per se, as technically it's implied that in order to get to purgatory, one would die to go there, and as we essentially do know, you don't really have to die to go there, per se.
Yeah, and I think how that world works, in one way, is that it's just an endless loop and that you don't truly die.
Yeah, as the way it seems to be described in the audio series is that time is non-linear. It's, as they say in Doctor Who, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Which, looking back on it, actually does explain one bizarre thing I always found odd about Little Nightmares 2, is how the Thin Man and young Mono would coexist if young Mono grows up to become the Thin Man. And now we know why. Time isn't non-linear, so time paradoxes aren't really a concern in that universe.
Yeah, that's why I like to call maybe those special children who survive. Well, just like in this anime called Higurashi, but we'll save that for another time. We call them loopers, because, you know, like, with one snap of your fingers, you come back to life in a different timeline. Whoop-de-doo. It kind of would be cool to have that power, but at the same time, probably best that you don't. Because that would be just endless torture.
Yeah, you'd probably go insane after a while, looking back on that.
Exactly. So, okay, and what I don't get is that, well, I guess I kinda do, but still mostly don't. After everything he's done for her, why the fuck would she do that?
Honestly, it's truly hard to say. I mean, one theory that I remember going around the time that sometime after the second game released, is that eventually she did connect the dots and figure out that Mono grows up to become the Thin Man, and thus believe that the best course of action was to drop them over the edge, which, in my eyes, is a bit of a dumb reason, because it's because her dropping Mono over the edge that turns him into Thin Man to begin with.
Well, I think that once the loop resets, they forget about the previous loop, and then it's just never ending. But if somehow, and I'm not saying it will happen, somehow they remember the previous loop, they probably would do things differently.
Yeah. It's only a matter of how at this point, which we've yet to figure that out, and hard to say if or when we ever will, so...
Yeah, that's really hard to say. But, yeah. I mean... If that were me, I would never betray my friend like that. And besides, what could Mono have done to prevent her capture? What could he have done?
Yeah, I mean, it was only until, later on did Mono really discover that they have enough power to, technically, I guess, banish or destroy the Thin Man. Though, by the time they did discover they had enough power, it was already too late. Six was already captured at that point.
Yeah, and I think that his power also includes warping time and space. For example, the tower is far away, but he was able to warp his way to the tower, so that way it's closer so he can get in.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, when we first started getting hints that they had some sort of supernatural ability, when they first started tuning the TVs and making their way to the hallway that contained the Thin Man and stuff, interesting how the way the ability is described. It's described as if they're channeling a radio signal, or more accurately, a television signal.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also theories that it's the same signal tower that's the cause of all the constant torment and corruption during the world, but I don't believe that's true. I just don't, not 100%, because it's everywhere. It's not just in the Pale City. Hell, the Maw is fucked up. So is the desert. Based on the trailer for Little Nightmares 3.
Yeah. Yeah, basically it just seems like everywhere, and that the signal towers, well, yes, it was affecting people, but it wasn't affecting people everywhere. It only seemed to have really affected people within the walls of the Pale City.
Not to mention...
Well, if you could call them walls, they're more accurately buildings just built next to each other so close and compact it formed a wall.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So we found... No, we didn't find. Super Horrible found it and told us about the new info. And surprisingly, it's really starting to finally make sense, because I didn't think they'd ever dive any deeper into the lore. They just keep us, in suspense, like they've done for the past few years, ever since they came out with the first game.
Yeah, it's rather crazy in all honesty. I mean, yes, the podcast did give us a lot of answers, but it also raised a lot of questions too. Like, example, why is the ferryman doing his thing?
Oh, the ferryman! I forgot about him.
In all honesty, I kind of did too for a brief moment, only to remember, like, oh wait, the ferryman's a dude that exists.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what his sin would be.
Or if he even has one, because compared to the other monsters, he seems rather chill. Like as it was described in Super Horror Bros. Theory, it seems like the ferryman's whole thing is basically taking kids who have been through too much abuse to the spiral/nowhere as essentially to pull them away from all the trauma they've experienced in their everyday lives.
Yeah?
But it's only those that have been through enough trauma, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, with the hell theory, he probably could be in hell for, kidnapping, and he regrets it.
Yeah. And the way that the ferryman seemed to have been describing on how adults get to the nowhere in the spiral, he mainly says that if you keep going down this road of corruption and abuse of children, or just abuse in general, you'll eventually make your way to the nowhere, but you're not gonna like what you find there.
No, I mean, hell, neither one of us liked what we found in the damn nowhere.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and it's fucked up. But how does this, tie into both Low and Alone story is what I want to know. Because these are two completely different children. Nothing to do with Six or Mono. I thought they'd continue Six's story, but I was wrong. Because these are completely different children. And Low, apparently, I don't know if they both do, but as far as I'm concerned, Low has the ability to travel through mirrors, while Mono had the ability to travel through televisions, which is similar, but it's with a TV, not a mirror.
Yeah.
It's
okay. Which with what it seems to be, for Mono's ability with the TVs, it seems like basically he can travel through any TV, but it's only like a short-range distance, while it seems for Alone's ability with the mirrors, it's basically theorized that they can hop between the several worlds of the spiral.
You said
rather than
Low.
just
I was talking about Low.
Oh, Low, I mean, sorry. My brain shot off again.
That's fine. But yeah. It's just, it's obvious there's some connection. Hell, Six used a mirror to defeat the lady, and there was lots of broken mirrors in Secrets of the Maw, and in the first game.
Yeah, not to mention, as I remember seeing from the trailer, there was a shot of a lone, semi-cracked mirror surrounded in darkness, so there's some obvious ties to the very mirrors that Low is using with the very same mirrors, or at least singular mirror, that defeated the lady.
Well...
What that connection is currently too early to exactly say. Just yet.
Yeah, it's not gonna come out until next year. So, yeah, of course it's a long wait, but I'm not surprised. And also, I'm not gonna expect a happy ending, because last time that happened, it ruined everything. And I kind of basically predicted the future ending without knowing it.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more crazy. Because I drew a betrayal, because I didn't know, nor did I think that was going to happen. I thought, okay, maybe Mono and Six can, fix this, or blah 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 blah. But that didn't fucking happen. It was a horrible ending, and that upset me. Really upset me.
I know, I full on lost my sanity when that ending occurred. I was like, that happened? And then just sitting in the credits, just mind blown.
Yeah.
Just unable to fully process what the past, like, several minutes were.
And let alone learning Mono was a Thin Man the whole time. Because, you know, he grew up, and we seen the Thin Man. Damn you, Bandai Namco. Seriously.
Yeah.
Could you at least give us a little bit more light-hearted ending? Like, give us a choice whether or not to drop him, instead of just the permanent badass fuck, I should say, ending?
Tearing out my heart cords, Bandai Namco!
Same, like, I actually cried. And I even voiced my opinion on the ending. I made a video on it, like, back then.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts, and it basically seems like everyone was in agreement that the ending was completely and absolutely insane.
Yeah, and it was pretty unacceptable, and I agree with them. Because, hey, Mono's done a lot for Six. Hell, he protected her. He saved her from the tower. She should have taken him with her, but no, she chooses to freaking play the selfish betrayer and just let him go. Like, did she really know that he was a Thin Man? I don't fucking know.
It's still hard to fully say. My other minor guess, and this is just me, like my own like tiny pocket theory, is that she probably still had a bunch of aggression after, like she probably believed that she was abandoned by Mono when she got captured by the Thin Man, even though Mono came back to save her, which in reality would make her betrayal against him even that more heart-wrenching.
Yeah, but it's not like he did it on purpose. He didn't mean to, and besides, he was just a kid then. What was he supposed to do against his future self when he didn't freaking know it was his future self? Just doing what a kid does, like, doesn't know how to react in that certain situation. There's only so much that a child can do before things go downhill. But that still doesn't excuse what Six did. It was fucked up.
Yeah. Even crazier, it seems like even though, of course, Mono did grow up to become the Thin Man, the Thin Man, personality-wise, despite clearly being tall and imposing, doesn't seem to have, like, mentally-wise, hasn't matured, even though they physically have. Like, even though their powers have grown exponentially for being trapped in the tower for so long, and locked behind that door for so long, it almost seems like, despite becoming the Thin Man, Mono, or at least what used to be Mono, is still technically in there, just heavily warped by their vengeance and wanting to get revenge on the very friend that betrayed them.
Yeah, and I could tell that the Thin Man didn't want to, say, hurt Mono 100%. Like, he wanted to get Mono, but kill him, no. And it makes sense now, because it's him in the future, and he probably wanted to tell him what was going to happen if he saved her. But he wouldn't listen, because, yeah, you're a kid, you don't listen to adults. Let alone so many adults in the world trying to kill you. So why the fuck would he listen to you?
Yeah. I don't know why, but briefly recalling this, I just have a brief, like, funny moment that I remember from watching 8-Bit Ryan play Little Nightmares. It was specifically a moment where he was trying to trick one of the viewers who was watching a TV to look at a different TV while this poor viewer is just sitting on, like, a clearly exposed makeshift apartment, like there's no walls really to it, aside from, like, 2 back walls where the TV is. And the other TV is on the opposite side of this huge gap, to where basically Mono turns the TV that the viewer was initially looking at off with the other TV on. The viewer just mindlessly walks towards the other TV, only to fall to his death as the Wilhelm scream was played over it. I'm like, okay, it's hard to pull a straight face when listening to the poor viewer just fall to his death.
Oh dear.
I admit, even 8-Bit Ryan found it funny. Like, I knew they were obsessed with TV, but holy damn.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm just not a fan of him.
I know what you mean, but I don't know why. Just looking back on that, it was just unintentionally funny. Just the poor viewer just falling to his death.
Yeah.
I mean, he had it coming since he's basically in some level of purgatory, but I still found it funny.
Yeah, and do you remember the part where basically the whole building was collapsing and everything has fallen onto 6?
I have brief visions of that.
I mean,
trying to
Mono
recall.
was fine, but I don't know how she survived that. Like, he pulled her out and all.
Yeah. I'm not looking back at that, and now I'm curious too. I mean,
How the hell
I don't know why my first thought was plot armor, but like, I tried to think of a more logical sense than that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean...
Beyond plot armor.
So yeah, don't understand how she survived that, because with all that weight on you, wouldn't that crush your one side of your body?
Yeah, and I mean, it is revealed in those podcasts that even though it is essentially a dreamlike world, you can still feel pain to pretty much the same degree that you do in the real world. So I imagine that would have hurt like heck.
Well, then again, 6 is a tough girl, so of course she didn't cry. Oh, and do you want to know about a certain theory about 6? No, do you want to tell about a certain theory about 6 after receiving the new info that Super Horror Bro mentioned?
Oh yes, basically, reculperating the theory in my own words, is that it's revealed that the main reason why Otto, aka the Doctor, wishes to go to nowhere is because as a kid, he lost his sister when his sister was taken to the nowhere by the ferryman. And it seems like his desire to go there is some sort of twisted way of wanting to reunite with his sister. Yeah. And the main theory going around is that the sister in question was 6.
Yeah. And honestly, it makes a little bit of sense, but at the same time, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's not too much evidence with it exactly. Though if it does turn out to be true that Otto's sister was 6, it makes 6 and Mono killing Otto in their monstrous state as the Doctor via furnace that much more messed up. Well, for him, not for 6 and Mono, but
yeah,
like you spend your entire life tormenting children, trying to find a way to reunite you with your sister, to not only get tormented and twisted into a monster by the very world your sister was taken to, but you get incinerated by your very sister and this random dude you just so happen to just meet. And that being Mono.
Yeah. And besides, do you remember how, like, Otto described his sister personality-wise? Like, did he ever mention any of that?
I'm trying to remember exactly, though I do remember, like, one specific moment where Noon was discussing one of her dreams, and Otto takes particular note when she mentions seeing someone wearing a yellow raincoat.
Are you serious?
I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but it was also stated in Super Horror Bros theory that at some point someone was humming 6's theme. You know, that do, that music box that we've heard countless times in all the games.
Well, actually, I've heard the lady sing it, but slow version. And I've also heard it in Little Nightmares too. But, you know, I think it honestly would make a little bit more sense if the girl in the yellow raincoat was a sister, not 6.
Yeah, the other girl from the nest where 6 originally got the raincoat from.
Yeah, and somehow the raincoat ended up in the Pale City.
Yeah. Either blown through the wind or got caught in a storm's rain. Hard to say.
Yeah, I thought at the end of Very Little Nightmares she was going down to get it, but no, she was going down to ride a raft out of that place. But yeah. it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to how 6 would be his little sister. And I remember her name, by the way. Do you remember her name?
It's Cece, if that's correct. I think it's Cece.
Yes. Yeah, and after Noon died, he never stopped.
Yeah, he just went to the next patient.
Which is a male this time.
Ooh, yeah. Which, hard to tell who they are exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
honestly, I'm rather hyped for Little Nightmares 3, especially with all the new info that we've gotten about it, along with just the Little Nightmares world in general.
I seriously never thought we'd get another 3. We get a number 3, because, I mean, hell, how are you supposed to continue the series?
I mean, yeah.
I just wanted to know where 6's story would go next, if it was possible. But, nope, that ain't gonna happen.
As far as we know, at least. The only other evidence that we have of 6 potentially, not exactly confirmed, but potentially appearing, is that at the end of the very Little Nightmares 3 trailer, we briefly heard a tiny segment of 6's theme, though that's pretty much the overall Little Nightmares theme in general, so not exactly enough evidence, but, it's there.
I don't remember hearing it. I guess I have to watch the trailer again. Is it?
Yeah,
are you sure it's not because it's just the original theme that they were using?
I mean, hence why I was saying it's probably not enough evidence, as it's just the typical Little Nightmares motif.
Ah.
Just a bunch of children humming, do, 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 which is like the first few chords of both the main Little Nightmares theme and, 6's theme, I guess.
Yeah, I don't like 6's theme. I'd rather have the main theme of Little Nightmares, especially the music music box version of it that they played in the number 2 trailer.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I remember a trailer existing for Little Nightmares 2 where it's this, I forget his name, talking about the concept of nightmares, mainly to generate hype for the second game. And the way he describes them with this new info adds a bit of an interesting context, where he describes that he believes that nightmares aren't exactly just our minds just reacting to different stimuli or whatever, but is implying that nightmares are being created by something external. Something beyond our mind's control.
I see. Well, I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember.
Yeah. And that basically, even when you wake up from that nightmare, you still might feel a bit stressed, and as if the nightmare still lingers even while you're awake. Anytime you turn a dark corner or looking under the bed, you're always questioning, is there something behind me? As if the nightmares crossed into the physical world.
Damn.
Which has a horrifying implication. If children, and by extension, wicked adults, can get in, could there theoretically be a possibility of those monsters getting out?
Monsters? Not so much. At least I hope so. But those that have probably been there by accident or by chance, there could be a way out, they just haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Though honestly, if those monsters did find a way out, judging by their sheer size, it's all over for whatever version of humanity exists in the counties.
I really hope that they don't escape. But those that have accidentally ended up there, and that, personally, I believe don't deserve to be there, I hope they find a way out. And I really hope there's not going to be any betrayal in the third game, or I am going to be pissed.
At least not betrayal caused by our two-player characters, as that would suck.
That better fucking not, because I am not going to tolerate another betrayal ending. First one was upsetting enough.
Betrayal via monster? We'll kick their butt later, but betrayal via ally? No, screw that.
Well, based on the small description, I think they're best friends.
Yeah, especially with how it's implied that it's actual co-op rather than a player and an AI. So by that extension, betrayal is less likely by that implication.
Better not freaking. They just better not. Period.
Yeah.
I don't think I can handle another one. Although
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't think
expecting a happy ending, but no betrayals.
Yeah. I mean, now I think about it, for the most part, every, at least of the main 3 games, well, at least the main 2, 3 if you count the DLC for Little Nightmares 1, ended in some dark way, one way or another. For the first game, it ended with 6 going on her full Joker arc, essentially stealing the life essence of every denizen of the maw.
They deserved it. And besides, these kids need something to, help protect themselves. So,
Yeah.
if you ask me, they kind of had it coming. So
Yeah, I mean, it was deserved, but yeah. Of course, the DLC, with the DLC, we become the very gnome that 6 later on consumes.
Yes, that was depressing.
Yeah. And then, of course, we know how Little Nightmares 2 goes, with Mono becoming the Thin Man.
Yes, and such a shame because that kid was fucking close.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I mean, Very Little Nightmares also had a bit of a darker ending, with the original kid with the yellow raincoat falling to her death alongside the Pretender, or at least their implied death, though 6 gets to safety, well, via raft.
Yeah. Not expecting a happy ending, but please no more betrayals.
Yeah.
Pretty please, Bandai. No more betrayals.
That which, now analyzing all the endings of all the past games / DLC, it seems like it is still rather unlikely we might get another betrayal, as each ending that I've explained is different. In example, in the first game, in the first main game, we basically ascend to practically near godhood, I guess, if you would depict the lady as some sort of level god. I mean, one that can be killed, but basically just become very powerful.
We have no idea why she has those powers, and besides, she ain't no god.
Yeah, she be demon. She's practically a demon, I guess, by this terminology.
Anyway. A narcissistic bitch.
Yep. And of course, in the DLC, we get physically transformed.
As we saw how the gnomes came to be. But then again, how can you explain the gnomes outside of the maw?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, all the gnomes within the maw make sense. The lady turns them into gnomes.
Yeah, and in Secrets of the Maw, you can see their shadows, which indicates that they used to be children.
Yeah. Which, crazy enough, we see at least something resembling those shadows in Little Nightmares 2, though they're more or less, I call them ghosts of the signal. Like they're
those
spirits.
Glitches?
Yeah, those glitches, yeah.
That's probably because Thin Man took them and just left their glitchy remains behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me think what else. Then, of course, in Very Little Nightmares, technically, now I think about it, Very Little Nightmares is the only ending where we actually see our character, quote-unquote, die. I mean, I know with the DLC, with Secrets of the Maw, we become a character that later dies in the main game. Though with Very Little Nightmares, it's the only one where we actually die at the end.
It sucks, but yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, with the second game, it's betrayal, slow progressive transformation into the Thin Man, which, now I think about it, there is one constant theme amongst all of them. That being the idea of transformation, whether it be mental, physical, transformation via death.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea how 6 was able to transform into that. I mean, how she looked so deformed. And of course we couldn't see her face due to her hair. But, yeah. I mean, her limbs looked very distorted and fucked up. Like as if they were broken. Or were broken and never healed properly.
Yeah, it's rather crazy. Like, example, in the first game, we, at some level, transformed, of course, with us gaining those abilities. In the DLC, we literally transformed from human to gnome. In Very Little Nightmares, we technically transform. We just transform into a corpse. That could have gone better. And of course, in the second game, we do transform. It's just a gradual transformation, rather than a, bam, you're the Thin Man now. Meaning if that theme continues to go down the line, it's possible that Low and Alone may experience some transformation, but it might be different than the others. I don't know how, but seems that there's some theme going on.
Yeah, well, we'll only find out and get the answers we need when that game comes out. So, yeah. Well, everybody, I'm afraid that we have reached the time limit of this podcast, because we've been doing this for like an hour.
Yeah, honestly rather crazy.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd do an hour, but we did an hour!
I consider that a record. If I've yet to figure out how long what the longest podcast here was, I'll do my research eventually.
You'll have to go see my podcasts for yourself and see how long they are.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast of us, speaking and talking about Little Nightmares nonstop, because, we're excited for the third game to come out. I'm not going to play it, of course. I'm going to watch it. I'd rather play than watch. Plus, I hate puzzles. So,
I'm kind of with you, Dan. Probably going to watch some Let's Players play it and react alongside them,
Excuse me. Yep. So, with that being said, I'm not going to promise there's going to be more podcasts, because I don't know what other podcast I can do, but I am sorry that it's been a hot minute since I've done it. So, with that being said, thanks for being here, Kitsu.
It's glad to be here. Like I said, first ever podcast, and I consider this one a grand success.
Yeah. And if you do want to do another podcast, which I have no idea what, you can let me know. And follow all of my social medias and subscribe to Kitsu. Follow his Twitter as well. And I will see you, and in case, I'll just see you next time, okay? Because I don't know how else to end this. Bye! Stay creative! Bye.